Beyond the buzzer, inside the game, this is Sports IQ with Larry Smith.
We've made it to the middle of the week. Hopefully you're having a good week so far. Good things here. We're having a good time in the Sports IQ. Great show coming up here. College football playoffs are on the way. It's amazing. The first semifinal game is tomorrow night. Ole Miss, Miami, and then it's Indiana, Oregon on Friday night. And that one from the Peach Bowl in Atlanta from the Mercedes-Benz Stadium. Zach Neel has been on the show before. Great friend of the show. He'll talk Oregon Ducks coming up. Not only Oregon trying to win a national title, but both their coordinators are about to go take over Power 4 programs at Kentucky and Cal, respectively. So this is a program, a coaching staff that has a lot going on right now. We'll talk to Zach about Oregon in a few minutes. Also, in basketball, in case you hadn't noticed, the Providence Friars are having an outstanding start to the season in the Big East. William Koch joining us to talk a little about the Friars this season and the year they're off to. A lot of fun as we now we're into January, into conference play. We'll talk about that here in just a moment. Let's start with our headlines, though. And, just when you thought the NFL coaching carousel had stopped, someone comes along with a handful of tickets and says, no, we're still open. Here, hop on. The Ravens on Tuesday decided to part ways with head coach John Harbaugh after 18 seasons. The move comes after the Ravens finished the 2025 campaign with an 8-9 record. It's just Harbaugh's third losing season in Baltimore and failed to reach the postseason after opening the year with major expectations. Baltimore had a chance to clinch the AFC North title on Sunday night, but lost the win and in Week 18 showdown against the rival Steelers 26-24, and they lost, remember, on that last-second missed field goal. So if he hits the field goal, I guess Harbaugh's still employed in the playoffs, getting ready for this weekend. Harbaugh was the second longest tenured coach in the NFL behind Pittsburgh's Mike Tomlin and is the winningest coach in Ravens history, 180 wins, 113 losses during his time in Baltimore. He also coached the Ravens to a win in Super Bowl 47, beating the 49ers and his brother Jim 34-31 after the 2013 season. It's amazing. I remember they had a ton of injuries to start the season. I think they began 1-4, 1-5, a lot of injury. I mean, a ton. They rallied from there just to get to 8-8 and have a shot at the title. So a little disappointing. We don't think he'll be out of work very long. Don't think the thing stopped there, though, as you silly NFL fan. The Turk came calling for coaches and decided to pay a visit to a few coordinators along the way. In D.C., the Commanders decided to sweep out both coordinators, offensive guru Cliff Kingsbury and the defensive mastermind Joe Witt Jr. Now, the firing of Kingsbury is a bit head-scratching. The team had one of the best offenses in the league in 2024 as Jaden Daniels emerged as an elite quarterback in his rookie season. This year, with Daniels only playing in 7 games and not finishing 2 of those in the offense, which had many other injuries, dropped from 5th last year to 23rd in the league. But there's a reason for that. The Cowboys' Jerry Jones also got his franchise in on the act. He said, yeah, why not? I'll make some changes. We're not going anywhere until we're playing again until September. 1 year after Matt Eberflus was shown the door in Chicago, Bears fans, sit down, stop clapping. The boys also decided that he was no longer a fit for their defensive coordinator job. Remember, Jones decided to trade away his best defender in Micah Parsons. And boy, we talked about it, producer Tony. I remember the segment like it was last week. I mean, he went off on that decision, and I agreed with that. Parsons is outstanding. The numbers were clear. The difference he made on the field when he was there with the Cowboys and the lineup. The defense this year finished worst in the league, giving up 30 points per game. Gee, never saw that coming. Anyway, so there you go. Maybe it wasn't Eberflus. It was Parsons up here there. Okay, so hopefully you have not gotten too dizzy watching the spinning carousel go round and around. Hey, it's actually some action last night to get into as well. College basketball, Kingston Fleming's one of the outstanding freshmen in the country, 23 points, including 9 in the final 2 minutes. Number 7, Houston, rallying in the second half for a 69-65 win over 14th-ranked Texas Tech. Cameron Boozer scored 27 points, including 7 during a 16-6 run early in the second half. Isaiah Evans added 23. Number 6, Duke, shooting 71% after the break to rally past number 20, Louisville, 84-73. The Blue Devils have won 3 in a row. At State College, the Michigan Wolverines got a scare. L.J. Kaysen scoring 14 points. Number 2, Michigan, holding on to beat Penn State 74-72. Just a terrible finish there for the Nittany Lions. Not sure what they were doing there. The Wolverines, 14-0, 4-0 in the Big Ten. They're off to their best start since they opened the 2018-19 season at 17-8. A couple of upsets did happen, though, just outside the top 10. Defending NCAA champ Florida. They played just a gauntlet of a schedule in the non-conference, and maybe it paid off for them. Upsetting number 18 Georgia 92-77. Gators big man Thomas Haw and Alex Condon, each with 21 points in the win there for the Gators. Minnesota moved to 3-1 in Big Ten play as they hold off a late rally by Iowa to beat the 19th ranked Hawkeyes 78-67 in Minneapolis. Tonight's action, number 4 UConn is on the road to take on Providence. Again, more on that game coming up later with producer Tony talking with William. Kentucky entertains Missouri. Number 3 Iowa State is on the road to face Baylor. Purdue plays host to Washington, and then in the SEC, a pair of ranked teams go at it. Number 11 Vandy, what a year they've had against number 13 Alabama. That should be fun. And that game's being played in Nashville. And the nation's top team, number 1 Arizona, has a home date with Kansas State in Big 12 play. Okay, producer Tony is with our first guest.
Well, thanks so much, Larry. And one of the games, obviously, that's going to captivate everybody the end of this week coming up is Oregon in the college football playoff semifinals, taking on Indiana, their Big Ten rival. That's odd to say. Indiana and Oregon, now Big Ten rivals. But there it is. We put it out there, folks. Oregon, Indiana, Big Ten rivals. Joining us is Zach Neel. He covers the Oregon Ducks for USA Today. Zach, thank you so much for taking time out and joining us. How was your trip to Miami?
It was good. It was a nice short business trip. I know when most people say they're going to Miami for New Year's, they don't do what I did, but it was fine. It was a business trip. We're happy to be headed back to the East Coast down to Georgia tomorrow. So yeah, it's a good time.
Yeah, headed up to play in the Peach Bowl for this semifinal matchup with Indiana. Let's look back at that Texas Tech game. And Zach, one of the things that impressed me was just the way the Oregon defense took apart the Texas Tech offense. They couldn't run it. They couldn't throw it. No receivers were open. There was pressure on the quarterback all the time. That was as good of a defensive performance as I think I've seen all year long from any team.
Yeah, I think it was probably the best we've seen this Oregon defense play this season. And as far as I can remember from an Oregon team in recent memory, it started up front. Their defensive line, the front seven, did such a good job of just owning the line of scrimmage, getting, like you said, getting after Baron Morton, creating pressure, halting running lanes. And that allowed the secondary to kind of do what they do and get in the way of the ball and create some havoc. So I think from top to bottom, I think it was about as good of a defensive performance as you could have asked for.
Yeah, they were just tremendous. And then the young man, believe Finley, the last name, Finney. What a great game that young man had. 2 picks, the fumble recovery. I didn't know much about him going into the game, but I sure learned a lot about him after the game. Give us some of his background and how Oregon managed to pluck this guy from somewhere else and get him to be like the stud of that defensive backfield. He was amazing in that ball game.
Yeah, he has been that guy all season long. When big plays need to be made, he's usually the one that makes it. He wasn't like a 5-star kid or anything. He was a high-end 4-star. He almost flipped to Penn State on signing day, and Oregon got back in the fold. And looking back, it's like, wow, you don't realize how big of a deal that was. But early on in fall camp, you started to hear rumblings that, hey, Brandon Finney, he might be able to earn a starting position. He started from the first game on, and he's been, arguably the best defender on this team, a true freshman All-American. Dare I say a future All-American, a future early round draft pick. He seems to have it all, and he's so young too. It's been great to see his development so far.
Yeah, I mean, I just love that the second interception down there in the corner. The Texas Tech receiver came off. It looked like he didn't want to run his route at all, and Finney just stood his ground. And then as soon as he saw the pass get it, he just drifted back and was right there to make. That was just a perfect interception to me.
Yeah, it was really impressive. And then Dan Lanning remarked after the game, he said, I was most impressed that he kneeled the ball down because he had some space to run. I know a lot of Oregon fans were hoping that he ran it because they thought he's a fast kid. He's got a pick 6 against Indiana earlier this year. They thought he could take that to the house, but he played it smart, knelt it down, and even though said after the game that he wanted to run it, but he made a smart play.
Yeah, that was a very smart play. Let's talk about the matchup now with Indiana. This is a rematch from earlier in the season that the Hoosiers won. It was a tight ball game throughout. Going into the contest, what do you think that Oregon learned from that first matchup with Indiana that they're going to be able to carry over into this game?
I think it's just kind of, lean on what got you here. I mean, Oregon has been a very good balanced team. They learned in that game that, there's things they can do well. I think they ran the ball very well against Indiana earlier this season. They kind of got away from it a little bit at the end of the game. Of course, they were pressing because they were playing from behind. But this Oregon team they're not the same team. They're a little bit better, I believe. I think they're more experienced. Dante Moore has had more starts under his belt. He's seen more. I think they feel very confident going to this game because they know that they've seen what Indiana can do. They've made the proper adjustments. Of course, Indiana is going to adjust as well. They're an incredibly well coached team, an incredibly talented team. But this, by all means, should be an incredible game. Two of the best teams, I would say the two best teams in the nation, all due respect to Miami and Ole Miss. This should be a really fun one.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to watching that Peach Bowl on Friday evening. That is going to be an impressive ball game for sure. I think one of the things that is interesting to me is, and I never realized this watching Oregon football before, but Dan Lanning kind of has that riverboat gambler's mentality. Oh, yeah. He was rolling the dice a lot on fourth down against Texas Tech. Was that just a combination of, as he saw the game progress and his defense just so controlling that Texas Tech offense, that he felt kind of embodied to go ahead and do that? Or is that his normal progression, that he's going to gamble when he thinks it fits what's going on in the ball game?
Oh, that's him. That's who he has always been. He's always been a very aggressive play caller, schemer, coach. I mean, he's always said if he sees a chance to steal a possession, be it on fourth down or, we've seen him do fake punts and onside kicks often. He's going to be aggressive. He's not going to be the one to try and give the ball away. So it worked out in this game. I think they did pretty well. We've seen it before when it hasn't worked out. I mean, go back to 2023. They missed a couple of fourth down conversions against Washington. That ended up having them lose that game when they could have taken the points. So, when you have that riverboat gambler mentality, sometimes it's going to work, sometimes it's not. Here it worked against Texas Tech, and I think that's going to allow him to keep doing that. He's not going to change. He is that aggressive nature coach. That's just who he is.
Does some of that riverboat mentality, does it make it harder for Indiana to prepare? Because I would think, I'm not a coach, but I would think I would have to be looking at spending some of my practice time looking at trick plays they've done in the past and preparing for those instead of preparing, just for offense and defense. You've really got to spend, I think, a little more time on special teams and trick play situations when you're preparing for an Oregon team.
Yeah, I think that's definitely part of it. I mean, Oregon's done a really good job of that this year, not only just in those fourth down special team situations, but just across the board, being so multiple, running out different formations, different schematic packages, different personnel packages. I mean, they have given just about as much as you can possibly give to other teams to prepare for, saying, hey, we can do all of this. And we may, they may be running out a 14 personnel jumbo package and just running halfback dive from it or halfback toss, nothing extravagant, but then you can see what they can do out of those packages and what they can do out of those personnel looks. So it just gives opposing teams more to worry about, more to focus on, which I think is advantageous for the Ducks in the end.
Yeah, as impressive as the Ducks were in that Texas Tech game, and look, they were very impressive. That was a dismantling. When you look at the Rose Bowl and Indiana's performance against Alabama, that was equally as impressive. They pretty much dismantled and took the heart away from that Alabama team and made them quit in the second half.
Yeah, and I think what was most impressive is this was, again, another weekend where we saw a lot of the top seeds go down after having that bye. And there was one team that didn't, fall to that bye, and it was Indiana. And so I think that speaks to their coaching staff. It speaks to how prepared they are. This is a really veteran team, a lot of 20, 21, 22, 23, even older players on this team. They're professionals. These are not kids out there. So I think they're, you could talk endlessly about how good Indiana is, how well coached they are, how prepared they are. That's part of what's going to make this such an entertaining game, I think.
And I talked with another reporter about the playoffs and the system. We talked to a gentleman from Miami about that. And to me, you've got 4 teams that left standing, and 2 of them seem to be built the old-fashioned way. Oregon and Miami, mostly through high school recruiting, and getting people in the program and keeping them for 3 or 4 years with occasional plucks from the portal to fill gaps. And then the other two, Ole Miss and Indiana, are heavy on the portal, a little less relying on their high school recruiting, and heavy in the portal to get their roster filled out. Is that something that you see as well?
I see that. I also think that's how long the coaches have been in place. I mean, if you look at Oregon a couple of years ago, they were more like an Ole Miss. They relied heavily on the portal while Dan Lanning got his recruiting classes in there. And Mario was the same way. I mean, he's had a lot of transfer portal quarterbacks while he builds up his recruiting classes and gets his roster to where he wants it to be. So I think if you were to ask Kurt Zanetti what he wants, he would probably lean less on the portal in the future. Of course, I don't know the man. I don't know if that would be his answer. I would just assume that seems more reliable and more able to last longer than just relying on the portal every year. But in this day and age of college football, you can build these rosters in different ways. We've seen that it can work in several different ways. Indiana has done a great job of using the portal and producing back-to-back playoff teams and showing how good they can be with that. It works either way.
For Indiana coming in this game, what does Oregon need to do to kind of contain Francisco Mendoza, to keep him under control, not let him have like the big passing day and control the game that way?
I think what it's going to come down to is stopping the rush and making sure you have success on early downs defensively. Because if you get Indiana into a situation when it's 3rd and 3, 3rd and 4, the entire world opens up for Mendoza. I mean, he can pass it, he can hand it off, he can scramble. We've seen him be really good at using his legs. So I think having those early down successes, getting them into 3rd and long, Oregon's got some really good edge rushers, some good pass rushers. Let them pin their ears back, try and get after him. But Indiana is so multiple. They can beat you in so many different ways. They've got great running backs, great receivers, obviously a Heisman winner at quarterback, a fantastic offensive line. There's not many things you're going to be able to do to get them uncomfortable, make them feel uncomfortable. So this is not a knockout punch type of game. This is going to be a 10-round drag it out type game. And Dan Lanning has said before this year, cut after cut, just keep trying to get cuts on your opponent. And at some point you'll wear them down and be able to take advantage. But this is not going to be one of those first quarter blowout, it's over. This is going to be a fourth quarter game in my mind.
Yeah. I mean, that was one of the things that I saw from that Texas Tech game is they kept chipping away at Texas Tech, chipping away at the defense, chipping away at the defense. While they weren't having the greatest success on the scoreboard, you still kind of felt like that Texas Tech defense has been on the field a lot. At some point, they're going to wear down. Is that the same kind of mentality going into this game? You keep that Indiana defense on the field as much as possible, try to wear them down so that in the late 3rd and 4th, they're not operating at 100% anymore.
Yeah, I think that's definitely a big mentality. I mean, you saw Dan Lanning after the game saying, the scoreboard is a distraction in this game against Texas Tech, saying, it may be 6-0, but we are destroying them. We're dominating them on the field. Like this, don't worry about the scoreboard. That's going to take care of itself. Just keep doing what you're doing on the field. You're tiring them out. You're getting them one body blow at a time. I think it's the same type of mentality, that not to start pressing if the score doesn't look like what you want it to. If you feel on the field that your momentum is there, you're doing what you need to do, you're executing, I think that the score will take care of itself.
And we've talked about the Indiana quarterback in Mendoza. On the flip side, Oregon's quarterback, Dante Moore, has had a fabulous year, possibly going pro. That hasn't really been decided yet what he's going to do in the future. But what does he need to do in this game on Friday to help Oregon get this victory and move on?
He needs to have a really good game. I mean, that's about as simple as you can put it. But this is a game where Dante needs to have an A-level game. We saw in the game against Indiana earlier this year, it was probably the worst game of his season. He struggled. Credit to Indiana, they forced that. I mean, they had a really good pass rush, simulated pressures. They kept him feeling uncomfortable in the pocket, and they did a lot of things up front that confused Oregon's offensive line. And it made Dante uncomfortable in the pocket and immediately saw his eyes drop. He was no longer looking downfield. He was looking at where the rusher was coming from, and he wasn't able to make his reads and run the offense. So for Oregon to have success, they need to, again, find success early on in this game and kind of get Dante into a rhythm. He is such a rhythm quarterback. We've seen this year that if he gets 1, 2, 3 passes in the first drive or two that he completes and feels good about, then it's a completely different game. He opens up, he plays free. That's what they need to do in this game. If they, go 3-and-out on the first drive and he feels pressure, it might spell trouble for Oregon because, we've seen what he can do when he feels good. We've seen how bad it can get when I shouldn't say how bad it can get. We've seen him struggle when he starts to feel pressure and start to see some ghosts out there. So getting him in a rhythm early on, making sure that he can have a strong game, strong output, I think that's imperative for the Ducks.
Yeah, I would agree with that as well. Coming into the contest now and getting there, it was interesting because the hero of the game was a freshman for Oregon, Finney, who played the role of star. And on the Indiana side, it was a fifth-year senior, Pat Coogan, who was a center, was named the MVP of the Rose Bowl. Give me a surprise guy you think for Oregon that may be the star we've not heard of that could change this game other than Finney, coming into this contest.
One guy I'm really looking at is tight end Jamari Johnson. And when you mention an Oregon tight end, usually you're going to think Kenyon Sadiq because he's, I would say the best tight end in the nation. But Jamari Johnson is one of the top 5 tight ends in the nation. He's Oregon's tight end too. He was not, a huge part of this offense the last time these two teams faced off in October. Oregon, because of injuries, has had to kind of develop him a little bit more, get him more involved, and he has flourished. He is such a big part of the offense now, a great pass catcher down the seams, a really good inline blocker as well. I think that if Oregon can find ways to get him the ball, kind of use him and Sadiq, and then they've got all these weapons outside too. I'm looking for Jamari Johnson to have a big game because he's a huge-bodied receiver, massive hands. I think he's a very dynamic player. If they can get him and Sadiq going, I think they've got a big game.
Sounds good. Well, we're going to leave it right there, Zach. I know you've got a lot to do, getting ready to head to Atlanta. Enjoy Atlanta. Hope you find some really good restaurants out there and enjoy the city a little bit. We will be in touch, especially if the Ducks make it to that national championship game. We're going to have to call on you one more time.
I hope to be talking to you in a week.
That would be great. Well, thank you so much, Zach Neel. He is the USA Today beat reporter for the Oregon Ducks. We will be right back on the Sports IQ after a quick timeout.
Are you tired of your website making your business look bad? Is your current web developer dropping the ball? Let's face it, if your website isn't making you money, it's broken. Let Neon Rain create a website that turns your visitors into customers. Neon Rain has worked with hundreds of businesses across North America, building custom websites and applications with modern designs that are easy to update and work well on mobile devices. They can do it for you too. What sets Neon Rain apart? They actually deliver on their promises. Call today for a free consultation. 303-957-3092. That's Neon Rain at 303-957-3092. Or visit them at neonrain.com.
You're listening to Sports IQ with Larry Smith.
Hey, the college carousel continues right now. It's funny how much action you have right now off the field of play. I mean, obviously the NFL coaching carousel continues. Just saw a report that Jason Garrett, who's taking, for so many years, NBA guys, possible coaches, when they would get fired, whatever, they would join the TNT gang and they would go over there, NBA TV, see them doing things over here, and all of a sudden keep their name and their face active every night with their analysis. And then pretty soon, poof, they're a finalist for a job somewhere. You remember Steve Kerr? We remember all the titles and the dynasty that he has overseen there in Golden State. Well, before that, he was at TNT. He was at Turner doing stuff with them. And if you remember, the Knicks could have had him. And he wanted $5 million a year. And they went, oh no, that's starter money. You don't belong. You don't deserve that. The Warriors said, yeah, we'll take that. And yeah, we can see what happened. The Warriors now worth $4 billion. So just like that. Anyway, the coaching carousel course is crazy. The transfer portal stuff we promised earlier. Listen, if we had double the time each day, it would still take us that much and more to try to go through all the players moving around. And there's a lot of them. But the big story that came out Tuesday night, that's one really to watch, is involves the Washington quarterback, Desmond Williams Jr., sophomore. He's got 2 years left. Now, here's the deal. So the reports are that he's already signed an NIL deal to stay with the Huskies. He's got 2 years left for 7 figures. Okay. And again, NIL deals they're top secret. As you know, every time I try to go through and ask different insiders about, certain, nobody really truly knows the number. I mean, it is a guarded secret like the nuclear codes. So then comes out that he is going to go and enter the portal. So lawsuit coming. In fact, you can smell the ink right now. That's as that thing's being printed out. And he enters the portal, and his announcement is, after careful consideration, of course, I'm paraphrasing as you get it, I need to do what's best for me and my future. Well, my friend, if you signed a 7-figure deal as a 20-year-old, 21-year-old, you're good. But anyway, reporting here on CBS Sports says that he has entered the portal with a do not contact tag. When that happens, that usually indication is, don't call me, I know where I'm going. And the destination that is being talked about is, drum roll please, LSU and Lane Kiffin. So watch this space, because this could get real interesting from a legal standpoint. And it may be a case that prompts a change in the rules. Which we've needed from the beginning of this thing. We're just a few years into NIL. We need some guardrails. And I'm not sure that the House settlement, and we've talked about this before as well, that went into place on July 1st. I don't think that's the answer. Folks are still doing their own thing. Another quarterback news. Nebraska made news in a way they'd rather not. They thought they had their quarterback over the weekend in a former Notre Dame reserve, Kenny Minchie. He then did an about-face a day later and went to Kentucky instead and joined Will Stein, who was the Oregon offensive coordinator, working on Friday's game to take on Indiana. Minchie is out, so Nebraska has now rebounded, and they grabbed Anthony Calandria, the UNLV quarterback. So he's trading in red from the Rebels for the red of the Cornhuskers. That's the story there. NBA, there are 12 games tonight. Chicago at Detroit. Also, OKC is back at home after that shocking loss on Monday. They take on Utah. Last night, a couple of games in play. Game on NBC. Minnesota getting the win over Miami. It was also the Spurs falling to Memphis, 106-105. Wemby had 30 points in that contest. Another game, Dallas-Sacramento, the late game on NBC. The Mavs get the win, 198. Cooper Flagg continues just to be outstanding. Just turned 19 years old a couple of weeks ago. 20 points, 8 rebounds, 6 assists. He's just an outstanding player. Again, what he and Concanipple have done, the two rookies from Duke, is just outstanding. Credit to them. Credit to John Shire as well, the college coach there at Duke, and what he did for those two. Hey, funny story we saw on ESPN. So there's an Italian basketball team that had to forfeit its game, a playoff game, because they had only one player left. So here's the deal. The team reportedly has some financial troubles, and they came into the game, walked in the arena with 5 players, 2 of them making their debut with the team. Well, 3 of them stopped playing at the end of the first quarter. Did you renege on the check? Is that what happened? So they had to forfeit. The score was already 38-5 when they forfeited down to 1 player. Yeah, because 5-on-1, you're going to score a lot of points that way. And again, so it's a playoff game. The rules of this league in the playoffs, if you forfeit 1 game, you forfeit the entire series. So their season's done. And listen, if you have only 1 player, your season should be done. You didn't do what you should do to field a competitive team. So anyway, crazy stuff. All right, college hoops is the conversation next here on the Sports IQ.
You're locked in to Sports IQ with Larry Smith.
Right back here on the Sports IQ as we're talking about some college basketball right now. And one of the teams that's really beginning to put it together, producer Tony, is with our next guest.
Well, thanks so much, Larry. And, college basketball season now just starting, the heart of conference play. We saw a few games in December, not much, just a little taste, give you a little taste of what's coming up. But the Big East now is in full-blown conference mode. And, this past Saturday, one of the more interesting games that I watched, I was checking out the Providence-St. John's basketball game. And what a great game by Providence, keeping St. John's in check, playing hard, and coming away with a big, big win in Madison Square Garden. And joining us today is Bill Koch. He is a sports writer for the Providence Journal. Bill, thank you so much for joining us. We want to discuss a little bit about this Providence team and basketball so far up there. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me. Best time of the year, and it's only going to get better over the next 2 or 3 months.
What was it about that game Saturday? Let's look before we look ahead to what's coming up. Let's look back to that game Saturday and what Providence did to come away with a win. Winning in Madison Square Garden against a really good St. John's team is never an easy feat for any team.
No, they defended really well. They found a crunch time lineup. They didn't sub the last 6:58 of the game, Providence. They settled on 5 guys and went with them. And you saw a couple freshmen sort of mature here right in front of your eyes, Jameer Jones and Stefan Vox. And, if those 2 guys are going to play like that every night, they're going to give Providence a chance to be in some of these games.
Yeah, Vox was really impressive to me. Just the way he held his own, his shooting touch around the basket, his hustle, the way he was playing defense down the stretch. Give us a little background, a little bit more on him and the game he brings to the Providence Fires.
Yeah, overseas player, was a spring addition to the roster. He's an older guy, older than a typical American freshman would be. Was in a little bit of a shooting slump the previous 3 games. It was a lot of 3-pointers, not much getting to the foul line, not much getting to the rim. He was much more patient in this one, especially in the second half. Has good vision as a passer. He's probably the most natural point guard that they have available right now, but there are upsides and downsides to playing him. The upside you saw, the downside is if he has to guard somebody or, potential turnovers or shot selection, young mistakes that I think you have to live with because of the talent. And certainly, Jameer Jones is a guy who was a top 50 recruit, very talented player, can play a little bit as a third guard, a little bit as a smaller forward. He had his first career double-double the other day against St. John's. And, someone who Kim English has said his potential is limitless. And, we've seen him flash it in a couple games here, and Saturday was the latest example.
Yeah, they both seem to really play well down the stretch. I didn't realize that they went almost 7 minutes without subbing in that game, but I noticed that they kind of stuck with that 5 for a very long time as I was watching. When you look at this team and the play so far, they did upset St. John's, but they have come so close on a number of occasions to pulling out big wins. What is it about them that helped get over this hump now? And what does that give this team hope for the remainder of the season now that they're in conference play? And where can they end up in the Big East?
Well, just the nature of conference play being what it is, you're going to be in some close games. And for Providence, they were 0-3 in 2-possession games this year. They were 3-10 in 2-possession games last year. So they're not necessarily in the habit of winning those recently. And I think it takes a certain level of mental application, a certain level of grit, an ability to execute. And I think that they fostered that by going with the same lineup the other day. I think sometimes when you make changes, you're looking for something different, but it might upset something that you already have. And I think those guys found nice synergy down the stretch, and it showed in how connected they were. It showed in some of the defensive stops they got, a couple of the key offensive rebounds that they got. And I just think that those pieces, those 5, really fit well together. And I think that's a crunch time lineup that they should consider going forward.
Yeah, it seemed like it was that they were all clicking. The communication seemed good. The passing, the skill all seemed to be just kind of clicking down there at the stretch of that ball game. As we look ahead now and kind of bring this team into 2026 and the rest of the year and things like that, your next game coming up is tonight on Wednesday night against UConn. That's always a tough challenge. What can this Providence team do to slow down UConn?
Yeah, UConn's really good, obviously. You talk about a team that's connected at both ends of the floor. Just the way their pieces fit together on the roster, they're really good in that way. Dan Hurley really built his roster intentionally in that way. He's got a good core returning group, couple transfers, and then a couple freshmen. I think he sort of hit on that as the formula that he wants going forward. If he's got an 8 or 9-man rotation, he probably wants 5 of those coming back and maybe 2 or 3 coming in from the outside in a given year. It's a lot to incorporate so many players as so many of these coaches are trying to do in the transfer portal. So UConn will be a tough challenge, obviously. And, really Providence, 3 out of their next 4 at home, but UConn, Villanova, and Creighton, 3 difficult games. Villanova obviously has been, I don't know if you should ever call them one of the surprises of the league, and certainly not with Kevin Willard as their coach, but they'll be a really difficult challenge next time up at Amica Mutual Pavilion. So Providence with a chance here, with a run of some home games, but some very difficult opponents.
Yeah, it's not an easy gauntlet, and the Big East never is. Look, the conference has always been among one of the best in the country. They may not be what they were in the 80s, but this is still a hub conference for college basketball. Great players come out of here, great coaches come out of here, great teams come out of the Big East.
Yeah, basketball first schools. No football there to consider. A lot of schools who in their home cities are basically the pro team. You look at Providence, Creighton, certainly. Connecticut has no pro teams in their market. The men and women there are the priority for the sports fan. And it mixes well. It creates an atmosphere, a sort of resistance to the rest of the college order that's dominated by football. No, we're going to be basketball first. This is our passion over 5 or 6 months from the winter into the spring. This is what we're going to back. And I think you see that every year at the Big East tournament when you go to Madison Square Garden. That environment is as good as anything that you're going to find anywhere. And that includes, NCAA tournament games in the first, second rounds, maybe even on the second weekend. You're looking at a place that, has a lot of like-minded individuals with respect to how they view their college programs, and it works.
Yeah, I remember being a college student, and I went to a small state school in New York. But come Big East tournament time, my junior year, my buddies and I made the trek down to New York City and bought some tickets on the street corner. Granted, not for what they're going these days; they were a lot cheaper back then. But we're able to grab some tickets and went into that atmosphere. And if you don't leave hoarse after a day of Big East early round basketball, you're just not paying attention.
Yeah, it's true. And you get there on the first day where you've got the 3 games. It's sort of the teams at the bottom who are just hanging on. The second day, when the top seeds who have buys get into the tournament, and you've got the 4 quarterfinals in a row, that's when it really starts to get interesting and takes off. And the longer that you can stay, the better it gets. You get into those semifinal night games, and then obviously the championship game, and the atmosphere is just terrific. And a lot of times you're looking at teams by the end of that tournament who are going to make deep runs in March Madness. You're looking at guys who are going to play in the NBA. So the caliber of competition just increases the longer you stay.
What has Kim English brought to this Providence program? How has he helped solidify things? Again, right now, you guys middle of the pack, but there seems to be a lot of upside on this team. There was a lot of upside for a team that I saw against St. John's going forward the rest of this season.
Well, his first year, obviously, loses Bryce Hopkins midway through and still manages to tread water. He has a 500 mark in conference play. They make a conference tournament semifinal. They're probably the 7th or 8th team out of the NCAA tournament. You're right there on the bubble. Devin Carter's a Big East Player of the Year and a lottery pick. So there was a lot of encouragement there, certainly coming out of his first season. Second year, it was a combination of things. The Bryce Hopkins situation with his knee and then sitting out, looking for a redshirt year and a payday elsewhere. Some disappointments in the transfer portal, some other guys who did not hit. And ultimately, the roster just didn't work and wasn't well constructed. They didn't play particularly well. They never really settled on 7 or 8 guys in a given night, matched the program record for losses. They really spent in the transfer portal coming into this year. They brought in some guys who they felt like would be impact players. And certainly Jameer Jones and Stephon Vox were guys who they were really high on. Struggled in the non-conference a little bit, just couldn't win some close games. Lost a road game at Colorado. Went 0 for 2 in San Diego. Lost their first 2 conference games. So they're going to St. John's on Saturday, really staring 0-3 and maybe 0-4 in the face against UConn. That win against the Red Storm gives them somewhere to build from, I think. It gives them sort of a starting point, a foundation point where we can say, all right, let's hit the reset button here. We've got 17 conference games going forward. It's not as dark as it would be if we're 0-3 or 0-4. We've got something to cling to now. We have a good win on the road. How can we build from this? And I'll be really interested to see how he manages the roster and how he manages the mood around the roster going forward. I think that's his challenge.
Vox is an interesting story. Like you said, he's from overseas. There's a lot of programs have reached over into Europe to bring players here and get them on the college scene. Illinois comes to mind. There's a couple other ones. How key do you think, you've been around college basketball, how key is it to develop some of those pipelines to maybe bring some of those players, because there's some very, very good basketball players in the younger ranks over in Europe that can help some college teams here in America.
Yeah, I think coaches look for talent wherever they can find it. And in this case, with the NCAA changing the rules at this point for NIL, you can go and essentially get pros, guys who haven't played in the NBA. You can sign them. You can put them on your roster. You can put them in major positions for you. And I think basketball recruiting is starting to mirror hockey recruiting maybe a little bit more. College hockey programs have done this for a long time. They've taken older guys from overseas who are 20, 21, 22 years old, who have played on club teams, maybe been semi-professional at some point. And what they found is that when you get older, obviously, it goes without saying, but you've got a 23-year-old man against an 18-year-old kid in their first year. The man is usually going to win. You've got guys who played at a higher level of competition, certainly. Guys who've been exposed to different things, whether it's living away from home already or, just managing the demands of being an adult. A lot of things that you would not have out of the American educational system if you're recruiting traditional freshmen. You've got a different way of skill development overseas. There's a lot more placed on individual players and developing their whole game instead of winning on the grassroots circuit. We need to win games. We need to maintain our shoe sponsorship, that sort of thing. You don't necessarily have that in a European professional league, certainly not at the club level, the youth level. You got 14, 15, 16-year-old kids learning how to play the game, not learning how to win the game. And I think, coaches are going to be drawn to that, certainly. They're going to hope that the guys they bring in can settle. It's a big life change, obviously, but they're giving them an opportunity that they might not necessarily have had in their home countries to come here, get an education, make some money, and then potentially go back out to Europe or somewhere overseas and start playing professionally again.
What are the two things, looking again to the game against UConn, what are the two things Providence has to do to be competitive and maybe pull off an upset in this contest?
Well, certainly with UConn's offense, they're so efficient and have been over the last 3 or 4 years under Dan Hurley, and certainly Luke Murray is a key member of that staff on that side of the ball. They're so connected the way they play. If you look at their assist rate, they're a top 20 team in terms of assists per field goals made, and a lot of that comes off the half court sets they run and the way that they execute. And then at the other end of the floor, obviously UConn always played good defense under Dan Hurley. I remember covering him when he was at Rhode Island, and that was where he made his money, at that end of the floor. Really tough field goal defense. They will be on you man-to-man for 40 minutes. They're not necessarily a team that's going to pressure the ball out over half court, but a team that is really going to guard you in your half court sets. They're going to run you off screens. They're going to run you off the three-point line. They'll really make it difficult for you in the paint. So for Providence, I think it's about patience. I think it's about execution. It's shot selection. It's basically just making good decisions. And I think you saw the other day against St. John's down the stretch, the ball ended up in the hands of the right people at the right times. And, it sounds simple to say, but get the ball to your best players in the most critical situations. Have the players on the court be aware of who those players are and what those situations are. And I think Providence really did a good job down the stretch the other day against St. John's of getting the ball to the right guys and allowing them to determine the outcome of the game.
Sounds good. Well, Bill Koch, thank you so much for taking some time out, talking to us about Providence basketball and about the Big East. We really appreciate it. We hope you enjoy the game tomorrow night there in Providence, and good luck to the Friars.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Bill Koch, he is from the Providence Journal. He's a sports writer, giving us some info on the Providence Friars and the upcoming game with UConn this evening on Wednesday night. We'll be right back on the Sports IQ after a quick timeout.
If you're a diabetic, we have great news. You can end the painful finger sticks with a new CGM. Plus, they may be covered by Medicare, Medicaid, or private insurance. If you test and inject daily, you may qualify. Call US Med now to learn more.
800-390-5160. 800-390-5160. 800-390-5160. That's 800-390-5160.
Great stuff there. Appreciate William stopping by and talking to us here. Producer Tony now talking to me. And let's get back to the NFL coaching carousel. I talked to a Ravens fan last night, and he was ecstatic about the change with John Harbaugh. I don't follow the team as closely as a fan would. What are your thoughts? I just think that it's with the season, the start they had and all the injuries to get to 8-8 and have a shot at the title. And it comes down to the final play. This just feels rough.
Yeah, I mean, I think John Harbaugh is one of the best coaches in the NFL.
Yeah.
Right. So if you're going to make that change, you better have somebody in mind that you think is better, that can get the job done. Now, I don't know if there was friction between him and Lamar Jackson or any of the other players on the team. I don't know any of the insider information, but just from somebody who's an NFL fan and watches the game very closely, I think the Ravens made a mistake here. You don't get rid of your franchise's winningest coach. You don't get rid of a guy who won a Super Bowl. Look, I've been a Buffalo Bills fan. Am I in favor of them moving on from Sean McDermott? Yes. Why? Because he hasn't gotten to the mountain. John Harbaugh got to the mountain and won the Super Bowl. That buys you time, buys you whatever. And it's not like they haven't been competitive. 3 losing seasons in 18. There are a lot of franchises out there that have 3 winning seasons in 18. You've had 3 losing seasons. Come on.
Yeah, my Chicago Bears, one of them. I mean, it's I've talked before about the Bears got rid of Lovie Smith after a 10-6 season, and at the time, like, wait, yeah, he lost the shot at the playoffs due to a coin flip, basically, but they won 10 games. Like, they're there and they're winning, and this is only their second winning season, like in the 12-13 season since then. So yeah, I'm with you. I'm right there. You're exactly right, and I think it's just as. And this is where the game has changed. We're old school. We're back in the day where if you got injured, you didn't lose your starting job. You came back and played once you were healthy. Well, now if your star player gets injured, you could lose your job. I mean, that adage moved up to coaches. And we go right down the BW Parkway, right down to Washington. In fact, where they'll be playing in a few years is literally right on the Parkway going down there. The Commanders wiping out both coordinators. And Tony, this is unusual. Usually you'll see a position coach or you'll see a coordinator. But a clean sweep of both coordinators means you're basically installing a new packages on both sides. That's kind of a scary thought as well.
Yeah, that's a tough position to be in if you're head coach Dan Quinn. I mean, if you're looking at if I'm a Dan Quinn fan, he's got to be the writing is on the wall, because the only time an NFL team will change both coordinators like that is usually when management has gone to the head coach and said, you make major changes to your staff or you're out.
Yeah.
So that's what I have to figure happened here. They told Dan Quinn, you got to make major changes to this staff. We don't like this. What happened this year was not acceptable. And if you don't, then we'll go ahead and we'll just clean house and get rid of everybody. So now you got to know that Dan Quinn is probably feeling like he's on the clock and he's coaching for his job next year, right? So if the people he picks out don't get it done or can't get it done, then chances are when we talk about the coaching carousel of 2027, Dan Quinn's name could potentially be right at the top if things don't turn around there in DC. And then that's kind of sad to me. I mean, look, I'm not a Cliff Kingsbury fan, but you lose your elite quarterback who plays less than half the season, and you don't, you've got a decent backup in Mariota. He goes down too. Look, there's not an offensive coordinator in the world. Just look at what happened in Kansas City when Mahomes went down.
Yeah.
Your guy was gone for even longer than Mahomes was out, and the offense couldn't run. So if you're trying to pin all this on Cliff Kingsbury, again, I'm not saying Cliff Kingsbury is a guru or the greatest offensive mind, but to pin all this on him, I don't buy it.
Yeah, I'm not with that either. I agree with you, and I think it shows how fast your fortunes can change, because we were here a year ago. Washington, had the fantastic season again. Jaden Daniels, former Heisman Trophy winner, coming through in his rookie year. Like, boy, this is a team that's set. Man, they're Quinn's got them turned around. They've got a young, dynamic offense. Things are clicking right now for them. They're going to build a new stadium. It's going to be state of the art. The old RFK site is right there. It's going to be fun to watch. Another place to go see when you're in the nation's capital. And a year later, boy, it shows just how fast, and especially now we've talked about again, as our society, we get more and more we want instant gratification. It's getting there too. The higher the money gets in sports, the higher the stakes across the board. Yeah, I totally agree with you. Okay, a crazy moment of awe is up next.
Fans of big sports radio and sports spectacular podcasts have a new home on the Chief Sports Network. Find your favorite programs and content all in one place by downloading the Chief Sports app in your mobile device. Created in South Carolina, the Chief Sports Network is the home of an expanding network of live and podcast format programming. It is also the home of one of the leading national college football podcasts, JC and Morgan, hosted by ESPN's Mike Morgan and 24/7 Sports' JC Sherbert. Download the Chief Sports app for free and find all of your favorite programming under one easy umbrella. Thanks to all of our markets for your loyal support of Big Sports Radio and our Sports Spectacular podcast, and we look forward to connecting with you anywhere in the world on the Chief Sports app.
Okay, time now for a moment of awe, or a moment of, oh my, are you kidding me? A lot more words, but listen, here's what happened. Texas A&M and Auburn Tuesday night. A&M has the lead, final seconds. Keshawn Murphy gets a shot off from beyond the arc as time expired for the game winner, the game-winning three, but the refs reviewed it and decided the attempt came after the buzzer. No good. Aggies get the win on the road, 90-88. So you can imagine there, the Auburn fans go from, exhilaration, they're celebrating, to all of a sudden, wait, we lost? We're now 9-6? What are you talking about? Listen, we're not going to make any kind of ruling in terms of what really happened. Not, you go back, find the video, and make the decision for yourself whether you think it was off in time or not. We kind of think it was. All right, that's our moment of awe for today. Glad you're with us as always. Appreciate you. Zach Neel, we appreciate you. William Koch, and we appreciate you as well. Our listeners who come in every day and always have some fun with us for this hour. For producer Tony, for editor Josh, I'm Larry Smith. It's the Sports IQ. Have a great day. We'll see you tomorrow.
Thanks for listening to Sports IQ with Larry Smith, Monday through Friday. Continue the conversation at Sports IQ LS. We'll see you next time.